Hello, Rob here from the Flanagan Homestead. Today's a pretty lousy day for humans. It's been raining constantly, not terribly hard, but constantly, and it's been in the 30s. So it's, like I said, not a good day for humans, but that means it's a great day for Christmas, not Christmas tree planting, but timber tree planting. We're going to plant some timber stock on my campground property, and I got a young gentleman coming up to help me today, and I'll show you how we're doing it and why we're doing it. So let's go ahead and get started. Made a quick drive down to Lewis River Reforestation here in Woodland, Washington. They're prepping their fields for the next year's plants, but they grow a couple million trees a year, and they're going to sell me just a couple hundred. All right, so here we are at the property getting ready to plant. Wyatt's holding the camera right now. So here's what 100 Doug firs and 100 cedars look like. I paid $220 for these, 120 for the Dougs and 100 for the cedars, so that's $120 for the Dougs. And I was kind of surprised, and the guy selling it to me knows that I've done a lot of trees, and he felt a little sheepish, not sheepish, but apologetic for the amount that it's going to cost to get these. Usually, when I buy by the thousands, I've been getting trees 40 in the high 40s, low 50 cents per tree, but these are $120. But these are a 1-1. They were 1 year planted out in the field, dug up, and then planted again. So these are Doug firs right here, bare root. And the cedars are plug plus one. So they were grown as a plug inside a greenhouse, and then planted, and then moved out into a field and grown a year out in the field. So this is what our cedars that we're going to be putting in look like right here. So as you can see right here, it's, what does it say? Do not expose to direct sunlight and keep cool, 33 to 40 degrees temperature. That's why a miserable day for humans is a good day to plant trees. But good thing why it's tough, because he's going to be doing most of the work. Okay, one of the things that I like to do when I'm planting the trees out here in an area that's pretty woodsy and wild, there's weeds and blackberry bushes and everything that grow over it. And so when I plant the trees, I usually take some orange flagging tape and just tie it around the top of the tree loosely and leave it there. And you might say, well, what's that for? If we want these trees to grow successfully, we're going to have to clear out the brush and the blackberries. There's a lot of places we're going to plant today that by the end of this summer, if we let it, the blackberries will be 8 feet tall over the top of this. So I'll come in with a weed whacker or a chainsaw and knock stuff down so these get sunlight and continue to grow. If you don't mark this with orange, I promise you, if you go back to do it, you're going to end up cutting down some of the trees that you are planting. So you don't want to hurt that which you're trying to grow. So until the trees get to about chest high, this tree will grow up to here and up to here, and then I'll put another flag up higher on it, and then once they get about chest high and they're poking through the blackberries, then I don't need to flag them anymore. So here we are started. Wyatt's putting some trees in the ground. You can see the orange flags are the ones we started. This is the most open area that needs to be filled in, but you can see why we want to do it. The road down there is completely visible on this part of the property, and the sound comes up. Now these maples and alders will put a lot of leaves out in the summer, and visually it'll block more, and actually those leaves block quite a bit of sound. But I'm trying to get some evergreen trees in. One, they'll be good timber value, and two, they will block noise and the sight lines year round. Just another point of interest why we're doing both cedars and Doug firs, and part of the reason I want more of these cedars. The Doug firs are going to grow taller, faster, and they're worth more timber-wise here, or for timber production. But the cedars, if you ever go into a thick forest that's not roadways, but a true forest for acres and acres, the Doug firs, as they grow really tall, the branches that are shaded out down below die off and then drop out. That don't have as much sunlight, but the cedars keep their branches lower that are not getting as much sunlight for much longer. So as I'm trying to block the view and I'm trying to block the sound, the cedars that are in here are going to keep their branches, their lower branches, for much longer and keep them thicker. So in an area like this we're going to plant, I'll bring in a chainsaw today and knock down some of these trees that aren't much of anything. But we're going to plant more cedars back in here where it's more shaded. Doug firs out here where it's more open. The cedars survive better when it's shaded, and then as we clear out more of this brush, the cedars will take off. Some of the Doug firs would die back in there. But anyway, I'll hopefully edit some video in of trees I planted many years ago where it was more shaded and back in the woods, and how the cedars did better than the Doug firs, but this is pretty common. Right here I'm going to give an example of how the trees that have more sunlight grow a lot better. So where I'm standing right now, everything behind the camera is open to the south. There's not a lot of trees. This is where my pasture is. Going back in this way, there used to be a lot more trees. We cleared out some and put the little shop back in there. But you can see the trees with the white bark. That's a bunch of alders that were in there. In the summer, they really shade things. So all these trees that you're going to see here were planted the same year. So all these trees I'm going to show you were planted at the same time. So this is what was behind the camera. This is the southern exposure, plenty of sunlight. As you turn and come into the woods, the first tree has plenty of sunlight out here, and you can see it is well over a foot in diameter. There's another nice big tree there that's out near the sunny side, and it is very large. And we've got some alders that were established already. You can see another fir that's fairly strong, but it is a little bit smaller. You come back in here and this one's smaller yet. As you get back in here, I had as many firs planted as cedars, but you can see cedar tree, cedar tree, cedar tree growing, and they have foliage and branches all the way down to the bottom. That's why I was saying they were good in shady areas and good for privacy barriers, because they'll put out these branches lower. Back here there's more open space because you can see the alders are dying. There's alders falling and dying all over the place every winter. Okay, we cut those up for firewood, and these cedars survived, and they're going to take off now that the alders are out of the way. There was just as many Doug firs back here as cedars, but many of them died out. Here's one fir that survived, is doing reasonably well, but you can see the difference in size from the one that was out there. This is another one that is survived for a number of years, but it's dead now. I may just be pushing it over right now. This tree has lost all its greenage. And then there's more cedars. Here's the farthest back fir pretty much that survived, but it's really thin and struggling. And again, all the way back in here, we've got cedar branches nice and full, filling in. Over here, more cedar. Over here, more cedar. And they're doing well. Let's duck under these cedars, and you come through, we got more cedars growing up in here, and these are all, as they get more sunlight, are going to take off even faster. And they also do well in wet areas. So you can see we're down here by the stream. So I flagged up a bunch of trees to be planted. Wyatt's putting them in the ground right now. I'm going to grab the chainsaw right now to run down the hill and knock down some of this stuff that I don't want growing up, so that our new trees will do better. One more thing about the process today, this is my favorite shovel for planting. Actually, I'm working on my property. It's a little bit thinner, about 4-inch thick blade, but it's a trenching shovel. If you're replanting a forest, you've got a spade that you just stick in, pull, throw the roots in, stomp it back, but we're putting a little bit more care into this, digging a little bit of a hole. But when you're running into roots and rocks and whatnot, a big normal width shovel, you're running into too much stuff. But this, you can make a quick little narrow hole, get the roots in, and plant it. So, love this shovel. Well, it got sunny for a while. We thought it was getting really nice. Wyatt ripped off his rain jacket, and as usual around here, late winter, early spring, we're wet again, and we got a light hailstorm going on. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. Let's see if we can. Got to get the drainage taken care of. All right, I'm going to plant a tree on the hillside and talk about why we don't just stick a spade in and then stick the tree and then push it back like you're going to do if you're doing acres and acres of forest land. We could take a little bit more care because we're only doing 200 trees. But I'm going to, instead of just opening up a hole, I'm going to actually dig a hole, get this tree in there, and then get it packed in good. Well, I'm sliding down the hill. But then what happens is you end up with dirt right above it like this. And as dirt sloughs down in the winter and dirt clods, they hit the tree and push it, or branches fall off the tree above there. That happens all the time in the winter, a winter storm. It hits the tree and is pushing it down. Now the tree is growing at an angle and has to grow up. As a matter of fact, Wyatt was talking about a tree farm he was working on and said he planted the trees sideways. Well, they didn't plant the trees sideways. They planted them, and gravity always wins, and something pushed it down. So instead of having that bank of dirt right here, I just spaded this out or shoveled this out and moved this around here. So there still could be branches falling down causing a problem. But if a little bit of dirt tumbles down, it's not pushing over my tree. It'd take a lot of dirt to get my tree growing sideways. Like I said, it will eventually grow straight up again, but I want it straight from the beginning. So we clear out that space above the tree, and this should do really well. So how far apart are we going to want to plant these? You know, we're going to, because of the hillside and what's open in the brush and everything, we're going to plant them where we have openings. Typically you'll want to do them about 10 feet apart if you're going to be doing timber trees or lumber, but even then, if they all grow, they're going to have to thin out the trees. Usually they can take some out for pulp and then let the rest grow at 20 feet apart for the big timber or for the big mill logs. For privacy's sakes, where we have a lot of opening and a lot of sunlight and the trees will grow fine, we're going to go ahead and put the trees closer, almost 5-6 feet apart in places, and let them grow in thick. And if we have to thin them out, that's okay. Okay, that just means that we're building a nice privacy hedge. Okay, on this section of ground, we do want trees, but we're going to wait. We're probably going to leave some trees. The weather's supposed to get nice, at least a little bit drier in a few days, and I can get my excavator in here. And there's more excavating over here. A lot of this is fresh fill up on top here, and we do want to plant in that, but there's going to be a little bit more dirt pushed over the hillside, so I don't want to plant trees and push it over. Also, I'm going to bring the excavator in and lift a lot of this scrub brush and throw it on the pile back there that I'm going to burn in a brush pile. And if I plant trees in here today, we're going to kill all that. So I'm going to save probably 50 trees and then just heal them into the ground. I'll show you what healing is later. And then we'll get the dry days, we'll excavate this, we'll clean up some more stuff, and then I'll come back in here and plant here and here. And all this mud that's up on the hill here, there's going to be grass seed on that this week. And then that's going to help from the erosion and keep the mud mess down. Here I'm clearing out blackberries, brush, and small trees that are getting in our way to access the plant. Also, they will compete for sunlight and be in competition for the trees and make it so that they don't thrive as much. As soon as we plant these trees, you will need to come through in these areas and clear this out again so that, again, they get sunlight and thrive. This is why we really like to flag our small trees with orange, because if we do this in the late spring or early summer when everything's green, then you see those orange flags and don't snip off your trees. So we've planted, well, we have about 30 cedars and 30 Dougs left, so we planted just under 150 trees today. We need to save these to plant on that hillside there after I clean up. So if you need to save them for a while, but not a super long amount of time, you do what's called hilling it in. Now I normally do this, dig a trench that's about yay deep and just throw them in. They could be at an angle and bury them here. I've been a little bit lazy. I dug a tiny trench right here and I laid the trees out flat, the remaining trees, put the roots down here, and I had thrown some soft dirt up here recently with my excavator, so just to cover the roots, I'm just going to slough this back down and cover the roots. If we cover, you don't want to bury the whole tree, but if you cover some of the greenage, that's fine for right now because you're only doing this for a little while. Like I said, I plan to pull these back out in a week and plant these. So now This is known as heeling them in, and I'll just press this down. If it was a drier day, I'd get a bucket of water and pour it over the top here. If it was going to be hotter and I was going to leave them here longer, I would probably try to use a shady spot just so they don't want to start growing here or drying out. So this is in direct sunlight. So again, if I was going to do this longer, this would not be ideal. I'd actually find a spot that's a little bit shaded to heel these in, and when I'm ready to plant, I can come back in here and just pull these out. They'll still be moist and they'll be ready to go. So the question has been presented to me, how fast do these Doug firs grow? And it takes them a while to get established. When they're little tiny guys like this, they might grow a foot this year, that'd be a good growing year. And then they get established, they'll grow a little bit more. But once they get above the blackberries and they're winning, they grow a lot. And I'm going to show you how much they grow there. So obviously this is the height of this tree, and it grew from here last year. So it grew about 4 feet. And you're saying, how do I know that? The Doug firs put out a bud at the end with several lateral buds on the side, and then that terminal bud goes straight up, and then there's a whorl of branches. So you see this is where at this time, a year ago, this is where this tree was. And then it goes here. Now this is a very fast growing tree, so it did 4 feet and 4 feet. So the last 2 years, it's grown 8 feet. And then if you come back in here, the previous year was in here. So it wasn't quite as fast. I have trees on my property that are well over 100 feet tall, and I look at them, and usually they're doing about 3 feet a year. The established trees, 3 to 4 feet a year that they keep growing. So 6 inches to a foot the first year, 8 inches to a foot and a half the second year, and then they take off. So on this tree, you can look at this one. So here's the top here. Didn't grow quite as fast, but here's the whorl. So this is where it was a year ago, where the flag is, and then this is where it was 2 years ago at this time. And then so you can see that was 3 feet, 4 feet, and actually right here is where the other whorl was. So that was about 2 feet. So in the last 3 years, it went 2 feet, 3 feet, 4 feet, and I don't expect it to grow more than 4 feet a year. Last year, it grew a lot. A lot of these trees grew a lot because we had an extended spring and the rains kept coming for a little bit longer, and so they grew a little bit longer before they went dormant.
You're right.
So a recap, we planted about 150 trees today. I really wanted to get them in the ground today and not wait. Sometimes you're like, I'll get it next year or the year after that. And if you put it off, you lose it. So my thought is, if I have 200 trees to put in the ground this year that I could put in the ground and I don't, I'm losing 200 years worth of growth. 1 year for 200 different trees. And you can see on those trees that I put on there that are established, they're putting 3 or 4 feet out a year. So if you're doing 400 trees at 3 feet a year, if I wait, I'm going to be losing 1,200 foot of tree growth for every year that I wait. So you want to get them in the ground as soon as you can and start letting them do what they're supposed to do. Well, you don't plant trees for several hours in the rain and on the hillside in the mud and not get all muddy yourself. So we're going to try to get some of this off here. Hose them off the pants. It's times like this that I'm happy I married a farmer's daughter, because she's somewhat understanding of me making a mess. I try to respect her wishes and keep the mess outside as much as possible. I will undress outside before I get home, and somehow I'll bring a little bit of dirt and mud in. And thankfully, I have a hot mama's fairly understanding of that. And but I'll try to keep as clean as I can. So I'll hose off what I can here. Time to go home, clean up, sit in front of the fire.